The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza continues to hold despite repeated violations. Israel killed at least 9 Palestinians in northern Gaza as the Israeli military warned Gazan residents to stay away from the areas where the IDF is still occupying. Israel has once again failed to open the critical Rafah crossing in the south. That's the only border point with Egypt, as was stipulated in the ceasefire agreement. It's also notified the United Nations it would reduce the amount of aid to be allowed into Gaza by half, up to 300 trucks per day. On the other hand, Hamas handed over the bodies of 8 slain hostages to Israel via the Red Cross, while Israel complained that the Palestinian terrorist group is moving too slowly with the 20 other corpses that they have to return. As part of the deal, Hamas was to release the dead bodies of 28 hostages and also release the 20 remaining who were still alive. While they've done the latter, they're currently dragging their feet on the former. But the basic outline of the ceasefire agreement had been on the table for many months now. By accepting it now, both sides, Israel and Hamas, have given up on some of their key demands. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had vowed to destroy Hamas completely, and yet, after 2 years of the war, Hamas is still the strongest player in Gaza today. Hamas, on the other hand, wanted a complete Israeli withdrawal and guarantees that Israel would not resume any military operations, both of which currently are unfulfilled. Israel is very much present in Gaza and it is unlikely to ever fully leave. So why did both sides agree to the ceasefire and why did it happen now? And the most important question, will this tenuous truce hold?
This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
Hamas had held on to the hostages as a form of leverage. Hamas seized the hostages when it attacked on October 7th because it knew that Israel would make major concessions to get the hostages back. In fact, if you were to look at historic precedent, back in 2011, Israel released more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in exchange for one soldier, Gilad Shalit, who was captured by Hamas. Hamas leaders were worried that giving up all the hostages would simply free up Israel to become even more aggressive in Gaza. And yet the hostages increasingly seemed like a slender thread that Hamas was clinging on to. Although their fate preoccupies many Israelis, this concern did not restrain Israel's military operations. In fact, Israel consistently prioritized killing Hamas, even if endangered the hostages. In fact, the recent push that Israel was making deeper and deeper into Gaza City was the latest indication that the risk to the hostages was not a constraint on the IDF. With the American deal, Hamas can at least use the hostages to claim a form of victory, forcing Israel to withdraw, and in the process, gaining the release of up to close to 2,000 imprisoned Palestinians. Hamas, on the other hand, has been battered by 2 years of fighting the Israeli war machine. Israel has killed many of Hamas's senior leaders, including Yahya Sinwar, who is the man who orchestrated the October 7th attack. It's also killed Hamas leaders Khaled Mashal and Ismail Haniyeh. Back in January, Israel claimed it had killed up to 20,000 Hamas fighters.
وقد تسلمنا ضمانات من الإخوة الوسطاء ومن الإدارة الأمريكية مؤكدين جميعا أن الحرب انتهت بشكل تام وسنواصل العمل مع القوى الوطنية والإسلامية استكمالا باقي الخطوات والعمل على تحقيق مصالح شعبنا الفلسطيني وتقرير مصيره بنفسه وإنجاز حقوقه إلى حين إقامة دولته المستقلة وعاصمتها القدس.
Few Palestinians have escaped without any losses. In fact, the death toll in Gaza surpassed 67,000 last week. Gaza has been completely reduced to rubble. Palestinians there have long wanted this war to end. They've been on the verge of starvation and lacking medical care. They've been constantly displaced by Israeli military operations. So each additional day of this war prolonging was only agony for the ordinary Gazans. Now they're hoping that food and medicine can come back into Gaza and rebuilding will begin soon. Israelis too have been exhausted by 2 years of this grinding war. There have been constant call-ups of reserves to the army. This has been straining Israeli families as well as the country's economy. In fact, Israel lost up to 500 soldiers, a number that is substantially higher if you were to compare the previous Gaza wars. In a recent poll, 2/3 of Israelis said they want an end to this war and they want a ceasefire and they want the hostages to come back. Both sides also faced considerable international pressure. In July, the Arab League called on Hamas to disarm and end its rule in Gaza. For the first time, they also explicitly condemned the October 7th attack. On the other side, European states have been repeatedly calling for a ceasefire, and Canada, France, and Britain formally recognized a Palestinian state at the UNGA last month. But Israel could not ignore pressure from Donald Trump and from the White House. The US president is politically strong when it comes to Israel. If instead of Trump, Joe Biden had pushed Netanyahu for a deal and Netanyahu had resisted, almost all the Republicans and maybe even some Democrats would have sided with Israel. But when Trump does that, most Democrats agree with him and Trump can carry his own Republican Party with him. Trump also personalizes politics. It's very transactional. And Netanyahu was worried that if he snubs President Trump, then he will neither forgive nor forget.
Donald Trump is the greatest friend that the state of Israel has ever had in the White House.
Trump was furious when Israel attacked Qatar, a close partner of the United States and a country that has been actively wooing the president with luxury gifts like a personalized 747 Boeing jetliner. By promising Qatar American protection, the United States was enabling Qatar to serve as a refuge for Hamas leaders who might have been on Israel's target. Trump even made Netanyahu publicly apologize to the Qatari leader when Netanyahu visited the White House. For Netanyahu, the increase in American pressure, especially after the Doha strike, meant that this was decision time. In addition to the general exhaustion and the lack of public support to try and continue the war, he wanted a deal that would bring the hostages back home. Netanyahu's own coalition is also fraying. He was under immense pressure from his far-right coalition partners. Defying Trump in an increasingly unpopular war was both politically and strategically risky for Netanyahu. Also, most Israelis recognize the importance of strong ties with America. Netanyahu, mind you, is also a master of politics. As Israel enters election season very soon, elections have to be held early next year, Netanyahu can now position himself as the man who shattered Hamas and Hezbollah. He's the one who set back Iran's nuclear program. The current deal between Israel and Hamas is a major accomplishment. It's an important step forward for Gaza as well as for Israel. But making this ceasefire last, making this peace last, is going to be even harder than achieving it.
Fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.